Welcome to Winsight Live. Thank you for joining us. We've got a lot to get to again today, including that Save Mart was just honored by Forbes in their third annual survey, for being the top grocer, the number one grocery employer of women. So that's a nice recognition for them. Their CEO is Nicole Pesco, who's got a really interesting story. Worked her way up from an entry level position when she was a young woman, and now is CEO of this company. Other grocers recognized that number two spot was Whole Foods, three HEB, four Trader Joe's, and coming in at five Publix. So it's nice to see the grocery industry supporting women in leadership roles. And before I kick it over to Phil, I want to remind everyone on Tuesday at noon Eastern, we've got a special guest, Mike Fogarty, CEO of Choice Markets in Denver. And we're excited to speak with him and find out the latest in the gourmet C-store space. Phil?
So, Jen, two things. One is a slight correction will be 12:30.
I'm sorry.
That's okay, 12:30 on Tuesday with Mike. Also, when you talk about Save Mart, um, and I don't know if you know this, but did they also evaluate just not the numbers of women in leadership roles, but how they treat women? Was that part of it?
I think a big part of it, they surveyed 75, Forbes surveyed 75,000 Americans
Wow.
and asked them, they asked them to respond to a number of statements. And I think it tapped into, the culture of a place and is this a company that supports advancement for women and are there leadership opportunities for women? I think that was a big part of it.
That's great. That's great. Good for Save Mart. Also talking about surveys, JD Power, their 2020 U.S. pharmacy study just came out. And for the third year in the row, Wegmans counts as the number one supermarket pharmacy, followed by Publix, Winn-Dixie, HEB, and then ShopRite. And then for mass merchandisers, Sam's Club came in first for the fifth year in a row. So that's kind of cool that we're seeing that. The study also talked a little bit about the fact that this year we're going to the pharmacy more often. So we have more interchanges, and I'm sure part of that has to do with COVID-19. I don't know if you guys saw this. I have not tasted this product yet. We do a lot of product taste tests, but I got the release yesterday that Frito-Lay has decided to move into the macaroni and cheese market to compete with Kraft and its Cheetos. And it launches this Saturday at Walmart only initially, but there's going to be Cheetos in three flavors. They've got regular, they've got bold and cheesy, flaming hot, and cheesy jalapeno mac and cheese. So are you guys going to try the Cheetos mac and cheese? Or you're going to stick with Kraft?
I saw that yesterday too, and I looked at it and I'm like, I love Cheetos. I don't know if I want the Cheetos flavor on pasta. So we'll see. But I'm a Kraft girl through and through, so we shall see.
Well, the thing that struck me when I saw the release too is that that they're using the authentic Cheetos cheesiness using Chester's top secret seasoning. That orange stuff that gets on your fingers. That's, I guess, top secret. And also they're saying that all the pasta is corkscrew pasta, which are inspired by Chester's cheetah tail. I didn't realize that cheetahs have like corkscrew tails. That's not true.
That seems like a stretch.
Yeah, it's a big stretch. I've got to taste it because of my job, but that doesn't mean I'm gonna like it. So I'm a big fan of Annie's. Matter of fact, Annie's organic macaroni.
Good.
I think that's the best one that's out there right now.
It comes in such cute shapes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, exactly. Also, before I throw it to Brett for his stories, Brett, I saw this morning that DoorDash is now competing with C-stores that they're launching just online, no brick and mortar stores, Dash Mart. So it's convenience stores to sell snacks and groceries. and other food-related products from partner restaurants. And they want to be like a ghost kitchen against 7-Eleven. What do you think about that?
It's awesome, Phil, and when I first saw that news, I was shocked because I mean, DoorDash is, has just been a third-party delivery service. But that's very cool news, and it kind of shows how, ever since I think Amazon kind of set the trend with this when Amazon started opening their Amazon Go stores, where it
Yep.
was like, okay, not only can they be an online service, but they're going to get into brick and mortar also, and Amazon opened their convenience store, so that kind of set the stage for this. But very cool that DoorDash is getting into this, and honestly, I wouldn't be surprised down the road if we see other third-party delivery services opening up brick and mortars as well.
Do you think that there'll ever be a brick and mortar Dash Mart that's out there?
Maybe it's possible.
Yeah.
I wouldn't shut anything down, honestly.
Yeah, especially with everything that you've been sharing and are going to continue to share today about consolidation. C-stores really seem to be on a roll. What's today's news?
Yeah, so Phil, I think this is what, the third or fourth Facebook Live where I'm talking about M&A in the C-store space. So a couple days ago, United Pacific, which is a convenience store operator based in Long Beach, California, they're number 19 on CSP's top 202 list, so the 19 largest chain in the country. They acquired 95 sites from Platinum Energy, which is a wholesale fuel distributor, also on the West Coast. And this is pretty big because it expands United Pacific's network to more than 500 locations, which is pretty big. That's a great accomplishment. So big news here. Most of Platinum Energy's employees will now go to United Pacific, which I think that puts their number of employees to 3,500 people. So big news on the West Coast. Obviously, that's huge. And as we keep talking about every time I mention M&A in the C-store space, it's happening all the time now, it seems like. And I know, Phil, you've asked me before what this means for the smaller chains and even the independents. It's just like, look out because these larger chains are hungry for acquisitions.
Is part of the acquisition strategy because people are driving less and they're visiting gasoline based C-stores, less often, so it's more attractive to acquire them now financially?
That's a great question, and I can't answer that 100% sure because I don't totally know. But what I do know is that the M&A surge was happening before the pandemic hit. The larger C-store chains, I'd say of the probably the top 40 convenience store chains in the United States are always trying to grow as much as they can and to put their brand out there and to acquire smaller chains and even larger scale chains. So maybe the pandemic has something to do with it, that financially it's a good time, but the M&A surge has been happening for a while now.
And you also wrote a piece about C-stores and food deserts.
So so C-stores and food deserts, it's kind of been a thing for a little while now, but you actually brought to light, and thank you for showing me this, a new Stewart's Shop location opened up in Port Henry, New York. And this store is specifically meant to, give food in a place that's hard to find food. So a food desert, provide community members with these new options, with these new groceries. And so Stewart's Shops, for listeners unfamiliar, is the 25th largest C-store chain in the country. So that's a pretty big deal. The new store is like 4,200 square feet, which I think is about the size of the rest of their stores. So very cool news that a C-store is opening up in a food desert. But this is not brand new news because for the past, I'd say, 6 years now, NACS, the National Association of Convenience Stores, has been a partner with the Partnership for a Healthier America, and they've actually worked together to place C-stores in food deserts. So in 2014, Quick Trip with a K out of La Crosse, Wisconsin, was the first convenience store operator to collaborate with the PHA, the Partnership for a Healthier America. And since then, other chains like Rickers, Maverick, Twice Daily, Sheetz, Cumberland Farms, and many, many others have collaborated with the PHA to really provide food to communities that are underwhelmed with food. And I think it was 2 or 3 years ago, I think two, NACS actually won the Partner of the Year award at the PHA's national show. So it's been a lot of great work with C-stores come to food deserts.
So when they go into a food desert, are they changing their mix at all of product? Are they pushing more produce, more healthier foods, or is it, still rows and rows of candy?
It actually has been a lot of healthier food initiatives coming to these areas because that's a big focus. So yeah, definitely. And then the Partnership for a Healthier America, I don't think they'd be living up to their name if they were just providing a bunch of snacks to these underwhelmed communities.
Yeah. So we have to go to Kat, who's our mask expert. We all have different roles to play. So what's the latest on masks?
Yeah, so as you know, we've been talking about this forever since the pandemic hit, and it's becoming an issue. In the last month, we've seen several of the large retailers mandating masks be worn in their stores, which is putting employees on the front lines of making sure that these mandates are enforced. So you're taking someone who could have been, a stock person and asking them to essentially act as a bouncer. And they're not trained for this. So, retailers have tried to do this, but one of the suggestions I read from a large retailer was, smile. But when you are wearing one of these,
Mm-hmm.
I'm smiling. Can you see me smile?
Yes.
So
and it's a perfect shade of red lipstick on that.
Yes, isn't it? Yeah, it's great. So, you can't establish a rapport with people like you normally do.
Right.
So I spoke with Russ Turner. He is the director of People Incorporated's Training Institute, and he had some really good ideas on how to help retailers train their team on how to handle these types of requests. He's coming from the mental health space, so someone retailers maybe might not normally turn to.
Sure.
He suggested making sure that you choose the right people to begin with. So don't choose someone who might cry when they get yelled at.
To be the bouncer.
Yes, to be the bouncer.
To be the bouncer, not the customer.
To be the bouncer, So make sure you choose the right people to begin with. Role play these situations in your team meetings, because he likened it to asking someone out on a date. Like, you don't usually go into those situations cold. You kind of know several different ways you want it to go and how you're going to react, whichever answer you get. So, kind of just start with getting them prepared. Be aware of body language, he also suggested, because when people get agitated, their arms start coming up, and you want to keep everything. Employees want to remain neutral, non-emotional, which can be hard, but, just kind of keep it low key. So he had 3 main steps to do this. And the first one was just to develop a rapport. So since you can't see someone smile, just, throw out a, "Thanks for coming in today. It's nice to see you again. Welcome to the store." Just something to kind of open the conversation easily when you see that they're not wearing a mask and they're supposed to be. And then also just make sure you ask them to wear a mask. Don't tell them to wear a mask. Just say, "Hey, can you throw on a mask?" Don't say, you have to put on a mask to come in. And he said, blame it on they, because chances are the person working the door isn't the one who wrote the mandate. So feel free to say, "They're making us do this. They told me," that kind of thing. And use very informal colloquial language. He doesn't, it's like, "Hey, can you throw on a mask?" Not, "You have to comply with this mandate." So you're keeping it kind of easy peasy when you're dealing with them. But then of course you're going to run across people who aren't going to comply with those first 2 steps when you ask them to put on a mask. So we offered ways to kind of de-escalate the situation. So, find ways that you can agree with the customer. You can say, "Hey, I don't like having to wear a mask either. The situation is just, not fun. I get it." Just find things to kind of like help bring it down a little bit. Offer them choices. And he admitted, the customer isn't going to like any of your choices, but if you can give them an opportunity to kind of engage and have to listen to you and choose, then that maybe will bring the customers, bring them down a little bit too when they start to get angry. And it can be like, can you put on your mask? Can I give you a mask that we're handing out for free? Can I, set you up to do curbside pickup so you don't have to come into the store? None of these are going to be customer happy, but hopefully, kind of bring the whole situation down. If they're still angry and they're, starting to yell, he also suggested paraphrasing what they said. So don't repeat back what they said, but if they say, I don't want to wear a mask, say something like, okay, so you're saying that, the whole mask situation isn't working for you. Just ways to say, I'm listening to you, even though we're not probably going to find a resolution you like to this situation, but I hear you.
There's one de-escalation step that you missed, or that he missed in sharing with you. Having Jen's dad.
Yeah.
Just have him in the store, de-escalates everything real quick.
Yeah. And he also said, let the customer have the last word if they want to walk away. And, if they're going to put on a mask, let them say whatever they want to you as they walk away. And if they absolutely refuse to put on a mask, let them in the store. Like you don't want to have a situation that turns violent.
So Pat, you also have written a bunch about what's going on with mental health and masks in restaurants. What have you found?
Well, masks are just the latest stressor. I mean, working in those close quarters, worrying about whether they have job security right now. There are so many issues that employees are dealing with. And so some restaurant operators, I think bringing in an outside consultant like Kat mentioned is a really good idea, but some are using their HR departments or their HR person, if they're a smaller place, to do, various ways of helping their employees. So for instance, there's a restaurant in Central Florida that's called Mojo's, and he actually has pastors that come into the restaurant and listen to employees,
Wow.
challenges and that kind of thing. And in exchange, they don't charge him anything, of course, because they're pastors. But he gives them like a free meal or, a free catered event when catering comes back in. So it's really a great relationship. Another HR person who runs a small restaurant called Lindy's Landing told me that she does mental health Mondays every week on like their Facebook Live channel, just like we're doing. But they do, instead of just talking to each other, they have mental health Mondays where they bring in suggestions or problems and that kind of thing.
I'd like to go back to something you said, because this just happened to me 2 days ago. We have a small, basically pizza and pasta restaurant up the block. And I was talking to the waiter, and she said to me that, the owner came in, and actually it's owned by 2 or 3 people. One happens to be Nick Jonas of the Jonas Brothers. He was not the one that came in. And they had a very, very busy weekend. So this was Monday, and they were all rejoicing and stuff. And he said, go for it now. Take as many people as you can in, because we don't know if the state of California is going to let us stay open. So you add that kind of stress to what you're talking about. It's horrible to be working who wants to work in a restaurant these days? Are you finding that, Pat, that less people are applying for jobs in restaurants?
Well, my colleague, Heather Lally, actually wrote a story about all the long-time employees who are leaving the industry now because they really, they just find it too challenging, and they might have been doing this for 25 years. They love it. They have a real passion for it, but they just really want to do something that's less stressful at this point. And especially, it's not only mentally stressful, but physically, the close quarters you have to be in. And you have to come in contact with these customers who spit on you or cough in your face. That is actually happening. So it's been a tough time.
On a similar note, for convenience stores, they're experiencing something really similar. They've a lot of chains have lost employees and they're struggling right now to hire new people. I actually was on the phone with a pretty big chain, or a chain of more than 100 stores in the Southeast
You can
yesterday.
tell us who it is.
Yeah, well, it's Parker's.
Okay.
They told me that they've had, I think it was around 180 just clerks, just regular store employees, not even show up for their shifts, like, in a single week, just because they are afraid to come in and they don't want to. Them not wanting to come in because of the virus, combined with unemployment with the CARES Act, a lot of associates can potentially make more by not going to work than actually working. So those two things combined, like restaurants, the convenience store industry is having a really hard time hiring right now.
As is grocery stores. So how do we get, and this is for everybody to chime in on, how do we get past this? How do we, and I guess the simple answer is, COVID-19, we have a vaccine and everybody gets it. But are people, even, once we get a vaccine, going to want to return to these jobs because of the new rules of distancing, allowing people in the store? What happens next, I guess, is my question. Jen, what do you think?
So hard to say. I just feel like there's so many unknowns, and I mean, I get asked that, about the grocery business on an almost daily basis. Like, well, when, I mean, I know you don't have a crystal ball, but when do you think that it'll be back to normal? And it's like,
Yeah.
you know, maybe we're permanently changed by this. I mean, I think that there's going to be, once there's a vaccine and it's proven that it works, and some time passes, I do think that certain aspects people are going to be eager to return to. But in terms of how much people in the restaurant business who maybe really loved their jobs, and the freedom of that before, and now it's become a very different thing. I don't know. Grocery stores have hired thousands and thousands of people, as have delivery services
Mhm.
like Instacart. So it's kind of been, they've been like the one consistent employer through this whole thing. So it'll be interesting to see. I don't know.
And I guess the question is, do we even need that many employees because of social distancing? The amount of people that can be in a store or in a restaurant. We might just not need that many people and wind up with, having 20 or 30 million people unemployed.
Well, I mean, in the near future, I mean, stores have needed more employees because you've gotten rid of all of the self-serves, in the deli prepared foods area, so they've had to staff up those areas. So now as they reopen the hot bar, they have someone there serving you. The staffing needs have been increased by COVID, but as we move into the next phase, yeah, that might change.
So on that high note, Jen, give us some good news.
This is fun. I was thinking, like, when I saw this news from Walmart, I was like, this has just been a summer where, like, it's got to be the most nostalgic summer on record, because we don't have anything. Like, I feel like, oh, where are all the lemonade stands? Like the kids with lemonade stands, like
The
all of
baseball games.
yeah, I mean, it's such a weird summer. So Walmart is in 160 of its store parking lots. It's going to do drive-in movies. I just think that's brilliant. Showing everything from classics like The Wizard of Oz and Karate Kid to newer movies like Wonder Woman and Black Panther. And you can go to their website and find out, which stores are going to have these drive-in movie theaters and what what they'll be showing. And then they've got Drew Barrymore as the virtual host for each of the showings. They're also going to do like short films before the main feature, and then they're going to have live in-person celebrity guests like Jennifer Garner and LeBron James, show up like as a surprise at various locations. So it just
Wow.
sounds like a lot of fun.
And to the best of my knowledge, you're also working with Robert De Niro and Tribeca Films. and using a lot of their films as well. Yeah, I agree with you. I think it's such a cool idea. The one thing I don't know, and I don't know if you know, I'm assuming that Walmart's not charging for people to go to the movies. They're just going to be free, right?
It's free. I mean, they did mention like, come on in and get all your concession,
Yeah, of course.
I think they want that as an opportunity to, sell popcorn and candy and
Yeah, yeah. Well, that's great. Well, thank you all for joining us today on Winsight Live. Again, all of our archives are on Winsight Grocery Business, on Restaurant Business, on CSP, on Supermarket Guru. And again, Jen, our special guest on Tuesday, tell us a bit more about Mike.
Mike Fogarty. He grew up in Pennsylvania like I did, and going to Wawa, and was kind of inspired by that, but has choice markets in Denver. And so his concept is more upscale in most of the locations. Although he does have one in a lower income area, like Brett was talking about, and meets the food needs of that neighborhood. But the rest are, a lot of fresh food to go. And his newest location even has it's its first location with a gas station, and he's got an electric car charging station. And it's more of a, it'll be interesting to hear what he says, because right now it was designed to be a place where people would also want to hang out and eat something, which is unusual, I think, for most convenience stores. But maybe Brett has a different view of that.
Sheetz is another one, that
Yeah.
has that. But Mike also has supermarkets. So he's one of the few retailers who has supermarkets and C-stores, correct?
No, all of his markets are technically convenience stores, but they feel much more like a grocery store than a C-store. It's like a mini grocery store.
Gotcha. Okay. Well, so stay tuned for next Tuesday at 9:30 a.m. Pacific, 12:30 p.m. Eastern Time. And until then, have a great weekend. Be safe. And as Kat would say, wear a mask that smiles.